Sirens wailed, slicing through the sleepy suburban evening like a knife through butter. HOA Karen, all 300 pounds of her, stood triumphant, phone in hand, smirking as if she'd just won the lottery by calling 911 on a kid who dared exist. The cul-de-sac on Maple Street was usually a picture of calm manicured lawns, kids' bikes leaning against garages, and the occasional dog walker. But tonight, HOA Karen and her sister Lynn, the self-proclaimed neighborhood watch queens, had turned it into a battlefield. Their target? A 12-year-old black boy named Jamal, who was simply walking up to his own front door, key in hand, after basketball practice. HOA, with her gaudy floral dress straining at the seams, had spotted him from her porch and decided he was suspicious. Lynn, her thinner but equally venomous sidekick, nodded in agreement, her eyes narrowing behind oversized sunglasses. "He doesn't belong here," HOA muttered, already dialing 911. "Probably a thief." Jamal, oblivious to the storm brewing, fumbled with his key. His backpack, stuffed with schoolbooks and a sweaty jersey, slumped against the doorframe. The boy's only crime was being new in a neighborhood that HOA and Lynn had decided was theirs to gatekeep. They'd lived on Maple Street for a decade, lording over it like petty tyrants, quick to judge anyone who didn't fit their narrow idea of normal. HOA especially had a reputation. Her waddle down the street, barking orders at kids to slow their bikes or lecturing parents on mailbox aesthetics, was a daily ritual. She thrived on control, her voice dripping with condescension, as if everyone else was beneath her. The 911 call was HOA's masterpiece. "There's a suspicious black male trying to break into a house," she'd hissed into the phone, her voice loud enough for Lynn to nod approvingly. "He's got a bag, probably full of stolen goods." "Hurry," Lynn chimed in. "He's loitering. Dangerous." The operator, trained to take such calls seriously, dispatched officers immediately. HOA hung up, her chest puffed out, already imagining the praise she'd get for saving the neighborhood. Across the street, Mrs. Carter, a retired teacher who'd lived there longer than the sisters, watched from her window. She knew Jamal's family. His mom, Aisha, was a nurse who'd moved in 2 weeks ago. Mrs. Carter had seen HOA's antics before. The time she'd called the HOA on a family for planting ugly roses, or when she'd screamed at a delivery driver for parking too close to her driveway. Shaking her head, Mrs. Carter grabbed her phone, not to call 911, but to record. She sensed this wouldn't end well for the Karen sisters. When the police arrived, their cruiser's lights bathed the street in red and blue. Officer Daniels, a seasoned cop with a no-nonsense demeanor, stepped out first, followed by Officer Ruiz, who was newer but sharp. Jamal, now frozen on his porch, key still in hand, looked terrified. "What's going on?" he stammered, his voice barely above a whisper. HOA waddled forward, her chins jiggling with righteous indignation. "That's him," she bellowed, pointing at Jamal like he was a wanted felon. "He's breaking in. I saw him sneaking around." Lynn echoed. "Check his bag. But it's full of stolen stuff." The officers exchanged a glance, subtle but telling. They'd dealt with calls like this before. Daniels approached Jamal, his tone calm but firm. "Son, can you tell me what you're doing here?" Jamal, his hands trembling, held up his key. "I live here. This is my house. I was just coming home from practice." His voice cracked, and he looked at the ground, embarrassed and scared. Ruiz, standing nearby, noticed the key matched the door's lock. "Can you open it for us?" he asked. Jamal nodded, turned the key, and the door swung open, revealing a tidy living room with family photos on the wall, one of them clearly showing Jamal with his mom. HOA's face twitched. "That doesn't prove anything," she snapped. "He could have stolen that key." Lynn nodded vigorously, her sunglasses slipping down her nose. "Yeah, check his ID. You can't be too careful." The officers ignored them for a moment, focusing on Jamal. Daniels knelt slightly, his voice softening. "You're okay, kid. Just stay here." Then he turned to HOA, his eyes narrowing. "Ma'am, you said you saw him breaking in. What exactly did you see?" HOA faltered, her bravado cracking. "Well, he was lurking. With that bag. He looked suspicious." Lynn jumped in. He was looking around, like he was casing the place. Daniels raised an eyebrow. Lurking? You mean walking up to his own door? Ruiz, meanwhile, was checking the dispatch notes on his tablet. The call log showed Hoas' number, and a quick cross-reference revealed she'd called 911 3 times in the past month, each time with vague complaints about suspicious neighbors, always people of color. Mrs. Carter, still recording from her window, caught every word. She'd already texted Aisha, who was speeding home from her shift at the hospital. The street was now drawing a small crowd, neighbors peeking out, some whispering, others shaking their heads. Hoa, sensing the tide turning, doubled down. "You're not doing your job," she shrieked at Daniels. "Arrest him. He's a danger." Lynn pointed at Jamal's backpack. "Search it. I bet he's got drugs." Ruiz, fed up, stepped forward. "Ma'am, lower your voice. We're handling this." He turned to Jamal, who was still standing by the door, looking smaller than his 12 years. "Can we see your bag, just to clear this up?" Jamal nodded, unzipping it to reveal a basketball, a water bottle, and a crumpled math worksheet. The officers nodded, satisfied. Daniels turned back to Hoa. "You called 911 claiming a break-in. This boy lives here. You got any evidence to back up your story?" Hoa's face reddened, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. "I know what I saw," she sputtered. Lynn, less confident now, mumbled, "We were just being careful," but the officers weren't buying it. Ruiz pulled up a recent state law on his tablet, one that cracked down on racially biased 911 calls. "You know," he said, his voice low but pointed, "filing a false report based on racial profiling is a crime. You could be looking at charges." The sisters froze. Hoa's smugness evaporated, replaced by a flicker of panic. Lynn clutched her purse, whispering, "We didn't mean, we were just protecting the neighborhood." But the crowd wasn't having it. Mrs. Carter stepped out, her phone still recording. "Protecting it from what?" she called out. "A child coming home? You two need to stop harassing people." A few neighbors murmured agreement, their whispers like a growing storm. Aisha's car screeched to a halt. She leapt out, her nurse's scrubs still on, and ran to Jamal, pulling him into a hug. "Are you okay?" she whispered, her voice thick with fear and anger. Jamal nodded, but his eyes were wet. Aisha turned to the officers, her composure barely holding. "What happened here?" Daniels explained the 911 call, keeping his tone professional, but glancing at Hoa and Lynn with clear disapproval. Aisha's gaze locked onto the sisters. "You called the police on my son? For coming home?" Her voice was steady but laced with fury. Hoa, trying to regain control, snapped. "We didn't know he lived here. He looked suspicious." Aisha stepped closer, her eyes blazing. "Suspicious? He's a child. You saw a black boy and assumed the worst. That's not suspicion, that's prejudice." The crowd grew louder, some neighbors now openly calling out the sisters. "You're always causing trouble," one shouted. "Leave the kid alone," another added. Hoa's face turned beet red, her hands shaking. Lynn, sensing the tide had fully turned, tried to back away, but Ruiz stopped her. "Stay right there," he said, pulling out handcuffs. "You're both under arrest for filing a false police report with racial bias." Hoa gasped, her hand flying to her chest. "Arrest? Us? We're the victims." Lynn whimpered, "This is outrageous." But the officers were done talking. As they cuffed the sisters, Mrs. Carter's video captured every moment, their indignant squawks, the crowd's murmurs, and Jamal clinging to his mom. The clip would go viral by morning, shared across X with captions like, "Karen sisters get what they deserve," and "Justice for Jamal." As the police cruiser drove away with Hoa and Lynn in the back, Aisha knelt beside Jamal. "I'm so sorry, baby," she whispered. "You did nothing wrong." Jamal nodded, but his eyes were distant, the weight of the moment sinking in. Mrs. Carter approached, her face soft. "He's a good kid," she said to Aisha. "This neighborhood's better than this. We'll make sure of it." The street quieted as the crowd dispersed, but the air felt different, charged with a reckoning. Hoa and Lynn faced charges, a hefty fine, and community service, but the real punishment was the shame. Their reign as Maple Street's tyrants was over. Jamal, though shaken, found strength in his mom's love and the neighbors who stepped up. The handwritten sign on the fence, "Karen's lies exposed," stayed up for weeks, a quiet reminder of accountability. In the end, the sisters' arrogance had been their downfall, and a boy's innocence had shone through. The neighborhood wasn't perfect, but it was learning slowly. Painful, it'll be better. The end.